Welcome to Celebrate Sisterhood. We're so happy you joined us. I'm Harriet Redmond, Executive Director and founder of Wisconsibs, and we're glad you tuned in to our virtual presentation today. We're here celebrating the 15th annual Celebrate Sisterhood event. We appreciate the support you've provided us for so many years, and thank you for supporting the mission of Wisconsibs. After a year like no one has ever experienced, we wanted to give our longtime donors and new donors a fresh message. While Wisconsibs managed to keep connected with siblings throughout the pandemic, we are now taking every opportunity to stay safe and happy together. The pandemic was difficult for everyone, especially for people with disabilities and their families. Many with vulnerable and compromising conditions continue to be isolated. As residential services and schools closed, employed caregivers were unable to work. Family members, including siblings and parents, had no other choice than to provide that care for months and months without a break. Wisconsibs programs was able to provide them a break, a chance to connect. We provided an affirming connection between teen siblings and younger siblings as young as 6 years old. We did so through our SIB camps and our SIB shops and other activities. For the very young, we introduced SIB Sacks for ages 3 to 5 that provides for children fun activities and tips for parents. It is year end, and the future of Wisconsibs is critical. Now is the time to dream big, and because our friends at the Community First Credit Union are matching donations today, it is imperative that we get as much as we can from our donors and supporters so that we can take them up on their generous offer. So we thank Community First Credit Union for being our matching sponsor today. Our goal is to get every penny of the match so that we can continue our mission and expand to even more siblings in the future.
I remember when I first heard about Wisconsibs, it was actually in a group called Partners in Policy Making, and the woman there was talking about, she had a disability, and she talked about how important it was for her sister to be involved in the SIB Shop program because it helped strengthen their relationships, so they understood how to work together to advocate for her. That's why Wisconsibs is so important. Not only because we need to advocate for people who have a disability and with people who have disabilities, but also that we can support the people supporting them.
One of the things that I really value about Wisconsibs is the group of friends / connections that I have with people that are a part of Wisconsibs. And I don't really get that same connection or deeper level of understanding and trust with people that aren't a part of the organization because they just don't understand the daily stresses and things that go on in a family where you do have a sibling with a disability, and they're always just there to understand and listen.
I wanted to get Edison involved in Wisconsibs right after Jordan got diagnosed with autism. I knew that all the different programs that they offer, from camps to SIB Days of Summer to SIB shops, would be helpful because he would be able to network with kids that are going through the same thing that he is.
And Lila has been a part of Wisconsibs for 3 years. Cole has autism, and he was diagnosed with autism when Lila was just 3.5 years old. And so she didn't really know much about her brother other than a kid who had a lot of people that came to the house all the time. And she called them his doctors. And she always would say, I wish I had doctors to play with too.
When we go to restaurants, I pick a place that serves pepperoni pizza because I know it's his favorite meal or thing to eat, and I think that would make our meal better.
SIB shops are kind of like her doctors. It's the thing that's just for her, and she doesn't have to share with her brother or do it for her brother, right? She's not making sure you guys are serving pepperoni pizza. It's just for her and what she wants to do, which we're so grateful for.
Our sister's name is Caroline, and she has chronic fatigue and dysautonomia. She gets tired a lot, so we make her little beds for her to lay on while we play with her, so she can rest and play at the same time.
WisconSibs was formed in 1998 to serve siblings of people with disabilities. It is the oldest in the country. The funds raised with Celebrate Sisterhood ensure that we can respond to the unique needs of people who have siblings with disabilities, long-term illnesses, or unique mental health conditions. To continue our mission, WisconSibs needs the support of our community and from you. We invite you to partner with us by using the HandBid app in your hand, or go to our website and click Donate at wisconsibs.org. In the meantime, I am so excited to introduce you to our speaker today, Rachel Lom. Rachel and her sister Jody created a podcast called The Sisterhood of Success, and it has become one of my favorites. As sisters, they've discussed all kinds of topics that we can relate to. Today, we welcome Rachel to the WHBY studio to share with you her presentation that she's making in person at the event today. Please welcome Rachel Lom.
Well, thank you for having me today. When Harriet invited me to come and speak at an event that celebrates sisterhood, I thought, oh, this is perfect for me. I have spent a good portion of my life building sisterhoods and celebrating the benefits that come with supporting each other and creating a community where we all feel like we can belong and feel encouraged. So I was immediately on board. In fact, throughout my life, I've been involved or a member of quite a number of sisterhoods. I have my sisterhood that I was born into. I'm the third of 4 sisters. I'm part of the Soccer Mom Sisterhood, which if you're a soccer mom, you understand. But I think that really translates into any sport, that you feel this connection and common purpose. So, you know, whether you're a soccer mom or a football mom, or technically in Europe, those are the same things. But a basketball mom, a band mom, you understand. So, and then I, in 2017, became part of a sisterhood that I really didn't choose. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at that time and became part of a sisterhood of women who have gone through that treatment and survived, became survivors. We'll talk a little bit more about that today as well. But then also in 2020, I started my own sisterhood. I created a podcast with my oldest sister, who prefers firstborn sister, actually. And we created a podcast called The Sisterhood of Success. And part of that was because my 4 sisters, our group, we're all best friends. And we constantly came across women who would say, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that you have these sisters. You know, I don't have a sister, or I'm not close to my sister. And so we would joke with them, well, we'll make you an honorary sister. You know, come be part of our sisterhood. And we said that enough times that we finally just looked at each other and said, well, why not? Why don't we create an honorary sisterhood? Why don't we create a place where people feel supported and encouraged and can learn from each other and feel like they belong? And so one of the other reasons was that we also feel like being part of this sisterhood, this little family that we had, that we often felt more successful because we could bounce ideas off of each other, or we supported each other through a process, and in fact felt happier together and felt like we should really share that with other people who were looking for that kind of sisterhood. So today, what I'd like to do is share some stories about the different sisterhoods I've belonged to, and also share some of the lessons that I've learned that I think will help all of us welcome more sisterhood into our lives. Let's start with the breast cancer sisterhood. So I think, surprisingly, that there are a number of parallels between going through something like breast cancer and being a sibling, being a caretaker. So I'm going to run through a few of these things that I see as parallels and see if you can identify. So first of all, we didn't choose this sisterhood. We didn't choose to be part of this group, yet it is a big part of our identities and who we are, and we've embraced that. It's a sisterhood where you often have to make decisions about how much information you share with other people about your life and whether or not you want to keep some of that private. It is, when you think about having to make that decision, it becomes obvious, but it is a sisterhood where you often have to manage other people's feelings about your situation. It can be very isolating and lonely in some cases because people just don't understand what you're going through. Finally, the one that really I think is interesting and I think we'll all be able to understand is we're often called brave and inspirational, and that doesn't always feel right. I know that when people told me how courageous I was and how brave I was, I thought, I don't feel brave. I feel tired. I feel weak. I feel scared. And it didn't feel, I almost felt like I was doing it wrong because it didn't match how other people saw me. And I think that'll probably sound familiar to a lot of people. So let's jump in though to the lessons I learned from that experience. First, I think there's some benefit to finding a group of people, a sisterhood, a community, who has been through something similar and who can understand and just get you. When you're frustrated, you don't have to explain it, they just understand. And I think that Wisconsin's is a great opportunity for your situation, to connect with people and to understand each other. For me, in some cases, it was a Facebook group of survivors who could answer questions or who could empathize with something that I was going through, or really just was a place to vent so I didn't have to dump on the people who were taking care of me or who I didn't want to scare with how I was feeling about things. It also came from an unexpected place, which was another mom who I didn't know very well and didn't actually know she had been through cancer, reached out to me and served as that role. I can't tell you how important that was. So if you're thinking about, you've heard somebody new or you've met someone who this is a new experience for them, it really is beneficial to make that connection and just have someone who understands what you're going through. Another lesson I learned was that sharing our stories is connecting and healing. I talked about that we had to make a decision about whether to share information about our situation on Facebook or anywhere. And we chose to be very open about that. And like I said, that brought a lot of people out. If I hadn't done that, I would not have met the woman who served as my primary source of support and understanding. I think it also helped other people feel more comfortable talking about it with me. They didn't feel awkward. They weren't sure if I was where I was at in the process because it was already out there. And it created a lot of support for me that I didn't expect. You know, people sent meals for 2 months probably. We had meals 3 times a week that I didn't have to think about food for my family. My husband could deal with everything else and didn't have to deal with that. And so being open created opportunities for connection that I hadn't expected. Another thing that I think was a big lesson was accepting help in the first place. As a caretaker, as the mother in my family, as a business owner, I am used to taking care of people. And it was a really difficult transition to accept that help. And yet I found that accepting help heals not only the receiver, but also the giver. We talked earlier about managing other people's feelings about your situation. And when somebody feels helpless, like they can't do anything to help you, it creates a lot of energy. And when you accept help from people, it gives them an opportunity to feel like they're part of your process, part of helping you through whatever you're going through. And so it's a healing process. It's not just about you. It's not a mindset where you're thinking just about accepting. Think about it as a gift to them to accept their help. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that as the caretaker, I thought my world would crumble when I wasn't taking care of everything. I thought everything would fall apart. I thought our schedule would, nobody would make it anywhere they had to go. I have 4 children, and 3 of them were still quite young at the time. And I really thought that I had to do everything. And I think the lesson here is that if you need a break, take the break. Take care of yourself. Because when I stopped and I let people do what they had to do, they did just fine. I don't know if my husband could have done it for a decade, but for a year, he handled our house just fine. In fact, probably a little better in some cases than I did. Other people stepped up and did what they had to do. And those were temporary things. I'm back to doing the things that I want to do, but I needed that time. And I think it's a big lesson to say you can step back and you can take care of yourself when you need to, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be there to step back in and do the things that I have to do. I've learned a lot of similar, surprising lessons from creating this podcast community as well, which I was kind of taken aback by. The first big lesson I learned was I was surprised by how many people are looking for this kind of community, who are looking to belong and need that kind of support and sisterhood. I can't think of a better word for it. Another thing I learned was that belonging and togetherness have been particularly difficult in the last year or so during COVID. And it's really difficult when you look at social media and people are presenting living their best lives. You feel like a mess. I know when COVID started and all the kids came home to go to school, you started to see all these little schedules, oh, from 7:30 to 7:45, we're going to eat breakfast. And from, you get these whiteboards of, then we're going to walk around the block twice for, 15 minutes. And then we're going to read for 20 minutes. And then we'll have arts and crafts time. And I'm thinking, my household feels like a frat house at the moment. And it's just all over the place. And the fact that we're getting through the day is my version of success. So I think that idea of recognizing what your version of success looks like. What does success mean to you? And maybe we take a little lesson from our siblings that we are caretaking. What does success look like for them? It's very different than it looks like for you and for me. And I think that idea of not comparing, not living to somebody else's standard is a really important lesson. Think about what you want and work toward that. And that's where you'll find your joy. Another thing that I'm learning through this new podcast community is that success is not a destination. It's not a goal that you work toward. It's more of a mindset, something that you practice every day. I think of it almost like an activity or a verb. Have you ever heard that? Love is a verb. It's an action. Success is a verb. It is a daily activity that you practice. And you're never going to reach that goal and cross it off your list. That was a whole different mindset that I had never really considered before. Finally, I think the last lesson is that we need to take care of people who take care of people. Today at this luncheon, I think success would look like bidding more, doing a little higher on that package that you want. It might look like giving a little bit more, or connecting with someone that is on this call. I think that it's important to find and raise enough money to support the people who take care of others. I'm so glad to welcome all of you into my sisterhood and to gather this an additional community. And I encourage you to look for not only ways to be a good sister or a good sibling, because I think that's something you're already excellent at, but to find ways to accept more sisterhood into your lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching today, and also thank you to our sponsors: Community First Credit Union, U.S. Venture, Myron Construction, Modern Woodman, and WHBY. Remember, your donation to Wisconsibs today will be matched, making even a greater difference to the lives of children, teens, and adults of people with disabilities. Thank you.
It had to be the only